This is former Indiana basketball player Brian Evans, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat on this Wednesday, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, of course, and happy to welcome in Ryan Carr, the Pacers VP of Player Personnel. Ryan, thanks a lot for joining us, man. We appreciate you.
Man, I'm happy to. I was excited for Todd to ask and glad to join you guys.
Well, the Pacers, man, they're loving life in the bubble and rolling, and Ryan wanted to make sure I let everybody know that he gets all the credit for this, that it's everything that he's done that is making this happen. I'm just kidding. Man, the Pacers are on fire. They're loving life in the bubble. They fresh off of a 120-109 win over Orlando, in which what happened in the first quarter, man? Did y'all put blindfolds on Orlando? Because they just went off for 43 points in the first quarter.
Yeah, well, you guys know, Todd probably attests too, like this whole thing, it's so unpredictable. I think there's going to be plenty of highs and lows as you play games in a really, unique situation and after the layoff and all that stuff. So I think down there every day is interesting part of the experiment that seems to be working out really well. Obviously, going 3-0 so far helps make you feel really good about it. And our guys are playing great. TJ Warren has this is like his dream. This guy has just loves to hoop, this is just like him going to the local gym to play pickup, I think, without fans, and he's living it. So I'm excited and trying to, teams trying to get into a groove to head into the playoffs here in 10 days or a couple weeks and see what happens.
Hey, Ryan, it seemed when the schedule came out and they announced like kind of the format, they were going to play, 8 games to finish up kind of the regular season, if that's what you want to call it. And then they would start the actual playoffs. The 8 games didn't sound like very many, but after watching, the first 4 or 5 days of it, all of a sudden now 8 games seems like a lot. And I watched James Harden walk off the floor last night, and I saw that Milwaukee's already resting Giannis, the second half of the game last night. And what are your thoughts on the 8 games? Because my original thought was that's a decent amount. That's probably the right amount. Now I wish they would have only done 4 games.
Well, I think nobody, I think so many things went into it, and I think the league, wanted to make sure that we got as close as we could to full schedules, and everything, just like all of our lives right now, it's like trying to figure one thing out, and there's 10 different other things that come up that you got to figure out. So 8 games is about 10% of our season, and it gets us fairly close to a full schedule, and then head to playoffs. I think with the different team strategies, it's still for a team like Milwaukee who's going to go in to the playoffs in a high seed. Like, I'm sure that they're taking the longer view approach that their season is may continue until October. They're hoping. So it's still a long road, and they might. I would assume that's how they're looking at it.
We were talking earlier before you came on, Ryan, and Todd talked about how well the Pacers are playing team basketball right now, and they kind of have to. But it's also a follow-up from last season when they lost Victor, and everybody thought the season was going to go in the tank then, and all of a sudden they became this team, really, really good team, and that's carried over to this season. And you can tell in the bubble because it's not like watching a normal NBA game. It's very entertaining to watch the Pacers style of play right now.
Yeah, well, for a number of years, when Kevin Pritchard took over from Larry and Chad Buchanan came on as GM 3-4 years ago now, they really, I think it was really important to them to kind of define what what our team is going to be about, and it really hasn't changed much. But we put a label on it. It's the same thing that Larry preached, but it's we call it 3T, but it's it's toughness, it's togetherness, it's teamwork, and that gets preached in our building every day. That for us to compete against some of these teams and beat them, we're going to have to do it together. And we have a group of guys that, kind of like you're saying, it's very collegial atmosphere in terms of how they get along, how they do things together, how they rely on one another, how they buy into the team, and that's up and down the roster, and it's very unique. And we take the approach that we're going to have to try to beat some of these guys as a group, and it's very fun. It's great to see the camaraderie they have on the bench. I think watching our bench during games is one of the highlights for me, and just seeing how the guys really pull for one another, whether it's Victor or Domas, all stars, or it's two-way guys who make it in, just a few times here and there over the course of the year. So it's really a lot of fun. I think it's really benefited us as this restart because we do have such good chemistry, and it's something that goes into every decision that we make in terms of who we bring to our team.
Hey, Ryan, we talk a lot on our show, on a regular basis about how successful former managers from IU have been, and specifically Bob Knight former managers. And for those people that don't know, Ryan was a manager, a million years ago. But he was just, it was a process back then in the Bob Knight days of being a manager and I say this all the time to people, like it was much harder to be a manager than it was to be a player. And the amount of time you guys put in versus what the players did was just, it's crazy how much effort and time you guys put into that. But talk a little bit about what that meant to you and what that did for you in order to put yourself in the position and the job that you're in today.
Well, I mean, just like you guys, and I got a couple good. I hope you'll keep me on long enough today. I don't know how much Todd talks about his playing career, but a couple cool things that I remember about stuff that happened with Todd when I was there. But I mean, just like you guys, we had dockets screaming down our neck about stuff. Just like you guys calling us in to get on us about stuff we didn't do or whatever the case might be. So. As you know, and people know, everything about that program was done a certain way and such high expectations that, you couldn't help but, you either conform to it or else you weren't going to last. And that was as a player, that was as a manager. It was, I think, where I noticed, the benefits the most was when you get sent into the real world and you all of a sudden have to have jobs. And, I remember one of the first projects I did for the Pacers as a video intern, and I messed it up. And I didn't, I forget exactly what happened, but I know Rick Carlisle, I was from Rick, and I just messed it up. And like, coming from, that program, like there was not an allowance for mess ups, no matter what your role was at IU. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just going to get this is going to be bad. And, and then all of a sudden what happens is in the real world, mess ups are allowed every now and then, and you learn from it and you get better. But what I figured out was because of what we went through, you had a lot less mess ups than what maybe your competitors who are trying to get that job or whatever did, and your attention to detail and discipline and willingness to work extra hours and do all that stuff. So I think problem solving. I mean, having to problem solve on your feet, and that's another big one, but. It was a huge advantage going into the real world, and as Todd knows, like I don't know how much Todd talks about his days. A couple really really good Todd Leary stories. I was probably I forget if I was a freshman or sophomore. Todd was 2 years ahead of me. And as managers, we're getting thrown in drills to, we'd have to defend or something. The drill was like 2 managers playing the top of a zone, and I think the guards had to dribble in, kind of get into the middle and kick the ball out. And as managers, like, again, like, the pressure's on us. If you're not working hard enough, and we had a couple managers who were really good players. I was not one of those guys. So I'm trying real hard. And if you see me, back then I probably weighed 125 pounds and 5'7" or whatever I was, and I tipped the ball from Todd. He dribbles in there, and this is the best. Although I scared to death at the time, like the drill got over, and Todd walks over and he puts the ball right from his face. So no one can see what he says. He said, "If you ever do that again, I am gonna take you outside. I'm gonna beat you up." He's a little bit different language, but it was awesome. And then, like, as I got more into it, I understood what he was saying. At the time, I didn't. I was pretty new still, but boy, you did not want a manager tipping the ball away from you if Coach Knight.
Ryan, I have spent over a year on here talking about how calm and nice I was to everybody all the time.
We know it's bull crap. Don't worry.
And you're just shattering all that in a quick story. Like, that's BS, Ryan.
Don't worry, that story was shattered the minute it came out. But one thing that just dawned on me is you had the opportunity. What a great, and not just you, but you got to work under Bob Knight and Larry Bird, 2 of the greatest names in this state ever, but 2 of the greatest names in the history of the game. And I just think about, I know that there's so much in coaching that comes from Knight, but game management, all that stuff that just trickles down. Because we've seen managers go on to become head coaches and GMs and player personnel in the NBA at the highest level. Man, that just shows how much of a learning experience that can be.
Yeah, no question. I mean, it was like being able to take a doctorate in basketball every day and not have to worry about playing. You just learn the game from it. Was like being at a coaching clinic and I think all of us that have gone through there's probably certain motivational tactics that, I may not employ or whatever, but at the same time, like, the overall, again, attention to detail and back then, if we always had coaches clinic come through and the players, have to do everything in front of all the high school coaches in the fall. And when you listen to Coach Knight speak about why he did things, like, it's no wonder that, like, the whole state and probably the whole Midwest, half the world, wanted to run his motion offense, do all this stuff, because when he explained why he did things, you'd just be sitting there going, why wouldn't everybody do this? Like,
right.
So, but not everybody could get their players to do it like he did. So, to do that, I think, I think about this often. I said it because Pat Knight works for me now, which is pretty funny.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah, because roommates, and you just, we're he's like my older crazy brother, but to think about how life has turned out, it's been a lot of fun to work with him and somebody I've known since I was 18 years old, but we're the only 2 people that will ever be able to say we work for both of them, and that's an amazing, for a kid from Seattle that totally sucked as a player that came to Indiana and to just, like, to have the experience I've had here. Like, I said this in a couple interviews that I've done. People ask, I mean, winning the lottery has better odds than what's happened to me, and it's not because I'm some basketball like genius. I think I've had been at the right place at the right time, and then tried to make the most of some good opportunities, and been really fortunate. Because now, like, obviously I would never say Coach Knight is a friend. Like, that's tough, but I can I'd get on the phone with him and talk and go visit him. And Larry really is a friend. And, employed me for 20 years or so. So, it's pretty amazing. And certainly, I don't take it for granted or I get speechless when I talk about it. Like, how could that even happen, right? Like, it's for guys that grew up basketball wise, when Todd and I did or whatever, it's really, really pretty unbelievable, to be honest with you.
Well, Ryan, you'd be doing the world a disservice if you don't write a book at some point in time about the coaches you've been to be around and just the people in general. But the hilarious part of all of that would be, out of that book, the things that people would enjoy the most would be the chapters that you wrote about living with Pat Knight. And all of the stories you can tell about Pat, because there has to be, there's a Bob Knight tell-all, and that's interesting, and a lot of basketball people will read it. But the Pat Knight tell-all, that's the book people will enjoy reading.
Yeah, well, the crazy part is, you knew him. I know you guys knew each other way even before college. You have my stories right. So that Pat Knight would be. I always thought of myself like I'm the good, I'm the good influence. And, he's my mom always credited him for kind of loosening me up a little bit, making me not stick with mine.
Your mom credited Pat Knight. Somebody write that down,
please. Those words have never been spoken before.
My mom loved Pat more than she loved me. I'm almost positive.
He's a character, there's no doubt about that, man. He is awesome. How much carryover is there still in that at the Pacers organization from Larry Bird? Larry's not there anymore, really, in a capacity, but what he did, what he brought there, that organization has obviously changed. Because remember back when the Reggie days, all that, but it stayed that way ever since then.
Well, yeah, Larry's still consulting for us, so he is still around. During COVID, this has been crazy, but because we've all been home for 5 months or whatever. But he's still very, is a great sounding board for Kevin and is around. So he's always loved the draft, which is always fun for me because we get to talk a lot about players and all that. But he's just. The Pacers, he as a coach, obviously, getting to the finals and then, being I think he's the only player to be, or he's the only person in the NBA ever to be MVP, Coach of the Year, and Executive of the Year. So, I think his mindset that we're always going to try to win, like we're never tanking for a draft pick. We're never it's always you're going to win as many games as you possibly can, and that is what you do, no matter what circumstance, no matter what injury. And that's just over the years, I think, rubbed off in the DNA. I can't speak for it before him, but Donnie Walsh, is he's the godfather, and you think about where he brought the Pacers. When he took over in the early 80s to the mid to late 90s and running that all the way to 2000. And, he recreated the Pacers so many times. And, those two people and Mr. Simon, you couldn't work with or for better human beings and better, basketball people. You see a lot of the franchises that are so crazy and there's so much drama all the time, and we're kind of a quiet franchise. You don't really hear too much about us. There's hopefully usually not a lot of drama, and just try to figure out how to win as much as we can, and kind of just stay quiet and try. I think we're we've got the longest streak in the league of 20-some years of a winning record on our home court. I think over the last 25 years or something, maybe the Spurs have been to playoffs one more time than us. So, and that, so we haven't got a championship. We work really hard to do that and every day, but we have had a lot of consistency and a lot of winning, and hopefully a lot of joy to the people that come. Like those years that you get to the Eastern Conference Finals or whatever. Those are fun years, and those are that's really hard to do, and we're going to try to get further than that. But yeah, we always try to win, and it's definitely part of his DNA that's left in that franchise.
You mentioned Bird being the only person with an MVP and a Coach of the Year and an Executive of the Year. Do you think he calls Magic Johnson like 3 times a week and says, "Hey, Magic, were you ever Coach of the Year? I got 3 trophies sitting over here that 2 of them I don't think you have."
That's such an interesting dynamic. Like, I've been able to be around them a couple of times together, and Magic is this larger than life, like what you'd expect him to be, just like this big personality and big smile and fun. And Larry is like the silent assassin. Said that's just who he is. So it's really funny and interesting, like how they're like personality wise are so different, but the respect and kind of like you're saying, I'm sure they say something back and forth to one another.
They are polar opposites for sure.
That was like Isaiah Thomas's mom. I remember seeing a clip. She's nicknamed Larry Bird's shot "Silent Death," so that goes right along with what you're saying.
Yep, no doubt.
Well, Ryan, man, I cannot thank you enough for taking time to join us today. I cannot tell you how much we appreciate it and look forward to doing this again as the season progresses, and hopefully the Pacers continue to just keep winning. Maybe they'll just go undefeated.
Hey, that's the goal, right? Try to win every game, and I would be happy with that because that would mean we did pretty well. But I definitely want to come back on because I haven't got a chance to tell a couple more Todd Leary stories and shit, and pull the veil back on him even more. So
no, you shot your wad on that.
You can come on once a week. Each week we can do a story of the week. We can do a Todd Leary story of the week each week, Ryan.
Well, the funny thing, Todd, it was interesting. Todd had a serious girlfriend back then. He did, a lot of the players' managers hung out a ton. So I don't have a lot of off the court, like outside of Assembly Hall stories on Todd, but I do have a couple really, and they wouldn't be embarrassing at all. They talk about. One of the moments I remember down there the most, and you guys probably need to get me off of here, but the week to his senior night was absolutely. I'll never forget that week and those days leading up specifically, and how challenging they were for Todd, and how just it was rough. And the way he bounced back, he ended up having a good day, a good game, and just seeing him respond from that. And I mean, you talk about what you get out of that kind of program and stuff, and learning how to bounce back from stuff like that, and in life when things happen and stuff, it's all that stuff kind of comes together. But one of the things I respect the most about Todd is just watching him go through that week and how he responded and kind of how he overcame that, because I would have been crushed by it, to be honest with you. So it's that's a very one of my. It wasn't. I guarantee it's not one of Todd's favorite memories of being down there, but in a way, it is one of mine because it's played out in his life about overcoming a ton of adversity and bouncing back. And that week was a microcosm, and I think Todd, hopefully you'd agree with that a little bit. That was pretty amazing.
Well, I don't know about amazing, but it was definitely a challenging week. Coach was testing me and late in my career and putting, trying to put me to the test. And it was just, it was one of many, but yeah, it was I remember it being a tough week, and, it all worked out. We won on senior night, which was the big deal. So.
I can't wait to have you back so we can talk about any rough moments we can for Todd. No, I'm just kidding. But no, we do look forward to having you back. Anytime. You are welcome anytime, Ryan.
Yeah, absolutely. And likewise, when we, as we get closer to the draft, that's kind of when, I usually do most of my stuff. Is kind of nice of Todd to ask. Usually I get like 3 days of media stuff during the year and then get forgotten about. So anytime, especially with the ID stuff with Todd, anytime you need a filler, just let me know.
We won't forget about you.
It's not a filler.
Oh no, trust me, this is great quality stuff. But Ryan Carr, the Pacers VP of Player Personnel, former IU basketball manager, kind enough to join us today. Cannot wait to have him on again, Ryan. Thank you so much, brother. We really appreciate you.
You bet, guys. Have a great day.
This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.